Morning, everyone. Hope you're well. Thank you for joining us live. If you are joining us live, if you're watching the recording, hi to you. Good evening, good afternoon, whatever time you're listening to this. This is our first live webinar, online talk for ICAP for probably a few weeks now. Everything's building up to the big ICAP conference, which is next month. Very exciting in London. If you haven't got a ticket yet, please get a ticket. Let me know if you haven't got one. I can help you out with that. But we're joined by our special guest speaker and a good friend of mine, actually, called Andrew Gow, who's joining us from Sydney, Australia. So it's about 8 p.m. there, roughly. I know Andrew's got a couple of young children, so there may be some road kids that sprint in at some point, which we're used to sometimes with speakers. But Andrew and I go way back in terms of, we used to work for a kids activity provider in Australia for a few years, and we became good friends and worked together and helped grow a big brand out there as well for a little while. And Andrew then moved on, as did I, to different roles, and more recently was in a senior role for a big fitness company that all you guys will know. So I won't talk too much about Andrew. I'll probably tell you a bit about his history in just a second. But hope you guys are well. Feel free to ask questions on the chat function if you want to at any particular point. Andrew might roll through the presentation and maybe answer those questions at the end, but there'll definitely be time for some Q&A at the end for sure. And obviously feel free to make notes. There was also a PDF resource, a really amazing one that Andrew's going to talk about and we'll link to during the talk as well. That was in the email I sent through this morning. So hopefully you've had a chance to download that. If you haven't, don't worry, we'll have the link available for you to do that during the talk. So Andrew, I'm going to hand over to you. Firstly, thank you so much for being a part today. Really appreciate it. And we're talking about productivity, which is something that all of us are constantly scrambling to get better at, which is why the response to this talk was really good, I think. So I'm going to hand over to you, let you do your thing. And yeah, good luck.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. Now, just want to check quickly before I start rattling off. I think you can hear me because Andy's acknowledging, so I think we're good. But can I just check that everyone's got access to the chat function? Can you just pop your name in there and pop something about your business? So who are you serving right now? Just so I can get a feel. Now, I have a good understanding of sort of who I'm talking to this audience, but for you guys specifically, I'd love to know. Just pop in the chat function, just your name and who you serve. Like who are you servicing in business? That will really help me. So as you guys are doing that, it'll let me know the chat function works. It'll also let me know a little bit about you. Okay. Now, as Andy said, it's 7 p.m. here in Sydney. I'm about an hour north of Sydney, so I'm blessed and really grateful to be able to present for you guys over there in the UK. I believe you're all in the UK. And listen, why I do this and the most important thing to me is that you get value. So I want to increase your results. I want you to achieve more. And ideally, we all want to be doing a little bit less. So I'm going to do my best to deliver as much as I can to you in the way of content tonight. I'm going to move through it quite quickly because I want to be respectful of your time. This is about our time as well and how we're using it. But the process that I'm going to deliver to you tonight is something that over the course of the last 2 years, I developed myself. And as Andy alluded to give you a little bit of background about me in particular, my last role before I went out on my own was working for a large fitness brand. Now, there was over 500 businesses that I supported as a business coach and as an operations manager nationally, and roughly 260, well, actually there was 262 exactly, franchisees that I supported as part of that. Whilst I did that, there was 8 business coaches in my team, and our job was to facilitate this type of stuff and help productivity. While doing that, I actually started 2 businesses with my wife. This is one, my performance coaching business, and the other one is something called Encampment. And you'll see on a little slide in a second what's important to me and why we started that brand called Encampment, which is really around e-commerce. Now, the PDF that Andy's referring to has a process in there, which I'm going to take you through tonight. And essentially, it's got a plan. So the goal here would be that we can map out not only the next 14 days, I actually added in there until the end of October. So we can map out to the end of October for you and achieve better results doing less. All right. So unlike a lot of other methods out there that promote working hard as the only way, this methodology is different to that. Now, I'm also a father of 2 young boys, and that's actually another big motivator for me, because when the day-to-day is getting in the way, and when different priorities and different things are vying for your attention, you've got to have a deep why, to Simon Sinek's methodology, and you've also got to have deep reasons. Now, 2 of my big reasons are on the screen right there, and that's also, they're in nature, because our business Encampment is about getting people outdoors. We sell glamping and camping equipment, and we facilitate that for people. So in this presentation, I'm going to take you through a few things. So grab a pen if you don't have one already, and make some notes. Now, if your camera's off and you're looking at other things, I'm going to ask you to be as present as you possibly can be as I deliver some of this stuff, because it is 100% going to benefit you. The 60 minutes that I'm going to deliver this content in, I wager that when you put this practice into play, that you'll get that back in spades by the end of this month. And when I say this month, I'm talking to October. So I'm looking at, okay, it's the end of September. What are we going to do to plan us forward into October? Now, what is high performance? I said I'm a high performance coach. What does high performance mean? So let's let Google tell us, because Google tells us everything else. So high performance in terms of an aircraft or a motor vehicle would be designed to achieve high speeds, a high performance sports car as an example, or designed to perform to a high standard. My version of high performance is actually a saying that is always do your best. So all I would ever ask of anyone is that they do their best in that given moment. And if you're always doing your best in every moment in time, then that's as much as you can offer, because my best and my standard of high performance is going to look completely different to someone else's, to that of an Olympian or a Paralympian. We were blessed to watch some gifted athletes, some like phenomenal athletes recently, do some special things that would be, I consider, ultra high performance. Their best may be different to your best, and may be different to my best. So high performance is about always doing your best as far as I'm concerned. Now, if you'll let me tell you a quick story before we kick into things. A businessman was on a trip, and he was walking down the street with his briefcase, minding his own business, and out of nowhere he hears this dog yelping and wailing and making all this noise. It's whimpering. It sounds like it's in genuine pain. So he wanders over to see if he can find where this dog is. And he sees a man sitting on a porch. So there's an old man, and he's just sitting on his porch, and the dog's right next to him. The dog is sitting right next to this man, clearly in distress. So the businessman leans over the fence to the old man and says, is your dog okay? What's going on with your dog? And the old man sits back and says, well, he's sitting on a nail. The businessman says, he's sitting on a nail. Why is he sitting on a nail? Geez, why doesn't he get up? What's going on? The old man says, well, sir, it'd be too painful. So many of us are avoiding pain, and we don't realize that on the other side of that short-term pain is everything we ever wanted, everything that we're working towards. So it's easy to stay where we are. So I'm going to challenge a few things tonight and look at a few different things as I execute this promise. So increase your productivity and results in just 14 days. You're going to achieve more doing less without anxiety and stress. Now, I caveat the last part because there is going to be a level of anxiety and stress, and that's going to depend on different people. And that is something obviously that I've dealt with personally, so I feel comfortable talking about both of those topics in depth. But my promise to you is that when you follow this process, and I'll step it out, that your days are going to be more productive, more focused, and you'll have tools in your arsenal that if you already had the tools before, you're going to be able to amplify them, and your best might turn up a few notches. if you didn't have these tools before and you get 1 or 2 things from this call, if you get 10 things from this call, then you can implement the ones that mean the most to you. So I'm going to give you a process that took me a period of time to implement and build. Now, what I would love is that everyone takes on the thing that is most congruent with them and implements it, because I can teach all the things and we can learn all the things in the world, but where we're actually going to get clarity is through action. Now, I might just take a moment. I might just check in with the comments. Fantastic. So we've got a really cool mix of different people on here. I'm really excited because Andy did actually mention to me that we would have some people from and people that I might know from a brand that I used to work for, which was Little Kickers, and I'm very fond of anything and everything in the preschool space. So thank you for putting that in there. Now, to talk to this method, I want to go through it in pillars. So there's 5 pillars, and if you're anything like me and you're thinking he's going to give me another structure or a process, and you're thinking, well, I got into business because I wanted more freedom, not more structure, I totally get it. Now, the thing is, when you've got a good structure, you've actually got more freedom. So structure is actually going to bring more freedom into your life. And the example I want to give you is when the curfew lifts here, because we are actually in a period where we can't move anywhere at this stage inside of Sydney. I'm actually about to get on the road and travel Australia with the family. So we wouldn't be able to do that with 2 businesses with my wife without having a really set structure. And that is where this process has served me greatly. Now, you're probably thinking, I'm going to spend an hour with you, Andrew, what's that look like? So I'm going to take you through the exact process. Now, the pillars in this process are specific goals. So that's tangible targets and specificity, mindfulness, and I'm going to give you a bonus at the end, something that we've created and something that works phenomenally well for my clients.
It's a lot.
How are you, Nikki? I've got you live. Ground floor. Thank you. I appreciate it, Nikki. Sounds busy in the background there. So mindfulness is pillar 2, which is being present, clear, quiet, and breath work for anyone who's experienced that. The 3rd pillar is tracking yourself, so results and outcomes, because we need a tangible result and there needs to be tracking in play. The 4th one is great questions, so having a growth mindset. And the 5th one is a powerful intention. So intention is connected to how are you being, how are you showing up, and when you've got a powerful intention, you can move things forward with intent, and you can be intentional about the actions that you're taking. So these are the steps that pillars that we're going to walk through. And I'm going to show you how they fit into that process in the PDF that you've got. So you've actually got not only the science and why it works, but then you've got the process that you can just execute on a day-to-day basis. So the Buddha said, we first create our habits, and then our habits create us. And if you're thinking that time is going to be an issue, if you're looking at these things and new things and a new structure and you're going, well, I don't know if I'm going to have time, you'd be right in thinking about time. And that's probably the same way your competitors are going to be thinking. So when you make the time and when we prioritize this, it's actually going to allow you more time and space to take action and get in front of competition. Because if we're all thinking something similar, it's the person that's going to be thinking differently that's actually going to move themselves forward. Now, in terms of time, the spend that it takes me each day with this process is 10 to 15 minutes in the morning and 10 to 15 minutes in the evening. And I'll walk you through more of that later. But that's all you're going to need to do this Achieve Growth methodology. The 2 things that I've learned over the years of working with hundreds of business owners and working with high performance teams is, number 1, a clear framework and structure in place means that things get done. So when you've got a clear structure and framework, shit's going to get done. And number 2 is that the human brain will take the path of least resistance. So these were massive things that I don't want to move over them really quickly. Once you have a structure in place, and once you understand that your brain and the team's brain is going to take the path of least resistance, you can start to do things differently in order to make something achievable and then execute it. It's got to be easy. You've got to make it as easy as possible. So it means that the other thing the brain will do is that if we don't put good practices in place and we don't have good habits and we just choose to not put these things in there, your brain's going to find something easy to put in there for you. So it's just going to slot something in there anyway, and it's going to usually go back to a habit, a learned behavior, and something like that has already created a neural pathway and is already accessible to you and feels easy and feels like something to do. Now, the example I want to give to that is if you didn't plan anything out, so if the day just kicked off and the emails came through and the calls came through and everyone else's priorities came in first, then your brain will take the path of least resistance, and it'll be something known, and it'll be something that potentially might not move you forward as much as you would like to. So what do I mean by pillar one, which is specific goals? Now, specific goals, they need to be tangible and high reward goals. Now, the high reward goals that I think of when it pertains to business is, does it generate revenue? Is it sales related? And is it helping people that are either going to be paying customers now or be paying customers in the very near future? So generally, when you get to a specific goal that's tangible and of a high reward, and the question I'll show you that's going to help you identify this later is going to help vastly. It's a lead measure, so it's something that's going to move the business forward. It's not just a task list. So I totally get it, because I actually love task lists, and that was a habit that I had to recreate. I had task lists and lists of different things to do. The task list is I'm going to challenge it and say it's not the most effective way to get things done, especially when you add in technology as an extra layer as to how you can manage priorities and calendars and things like that. So the example I want to give of a specific goal is salesperson A has a goal that states, I will call 10 prospects or 10 potential customers today. And then person B has a goal that states, I will call and offer a course and send a follow-up email with that offer to 10 prospects today. So you know who's going to get the better result, because one person is simply stating that they're going to call 10 people. The other person is stating they're going to call 10 people with intent, with an action, with an offer, and they're going to follow that up. So they've followed those processes, and the strike rate on those people actually becoming a loyal customer or actually saying, I want to hear more, is going to be far superior. So that's what I mean about specific goals. It's very easy to just say, hey, today I'm going to call 10 people. That's the path of least resistance, is I'm going to call 10 people. The path that's going to get you the result is when we ask this question that I'm going to go through shortly, it's going to take you to something of more specificity and more tangible value to your business. And we're going to divulge this a little bit further when we talk about great questions, because questions they're going to provide answers for you when you ask the right ones in the right places. Now, this process looks a little bit like this in the PDF that you've got, because I do want to go through it. I want to marry in a little bit of science with this, because your brain, as well as taking the path of least resistance, it has a section at the base of the skull called the RAS, or the reticular activating system. Now, the sole purpose of the RAS is a filtration system. It's going to filter information in that's congruent with you, and it's going to filter out information that's inconsistent with your values and your beliefs and things like that. Now, that's a very high example of it, but the way the RAS works as it pertains to getting what you want is, if you've got the things in front of you, if that's a focal point for you, and you're consistent with that, the chances are you are going to see more of those things, you're going to create more of those things, and you're going to have more of a focus around helping your brain out when it's trying to process the million pieces of data that's coming through it. Now, the question I've got for you right now, as you're listening to this, is, where are your goals right now? If you're sitting at your desk, if you're sitting at If you're at home, if you're in an office, wherever you are right now, where are they and how quickly accessible to you are they? So if they're visible, are they hidden away? Where are they? And I just want to sort of plant that seed to go, when they're in front of us and when they're accessible and when there's a scorecard, results will happen. Results will follow as a byproduct to that. So the purpose of specific goals is to generate you long-term growth in your business. Goals are a signpost and they're necessary so you know where you're heading. So the lead measures that you take, like the calls to call those people, that might be an action or a lead measure goal for the day, but their monthly goal or the 14-day goal or whatever you set in the future will usually be something as it pertains to a business result, like I will generate X amount of sales or income. I'm talking very specifically to sales and income. There's a lot of different, you can set personal health goals and different things like that, but I want this to be relevant to your business and moving your business forward. So the purpose of doing this is so that you can have more freedom and ease and enjoy the business that you set out to. You created a business not to sit behind a desk all the time. You created a business to create change in people. So let's get specificity with our goals so we can move things forward. So what are your business goals and what do you want to happen in the next 14 days? I would wager that when you clicked yes and jumped on here, that you were thinking about something that you were moving towards that you hadn't gotten yet. So it would be fair to say that to get something that you haven't had before, or maybe it's something that you have had before in your business, like let's say it's 100 clients or something like that, and you just want to double that number, or you want to put 10% on that number, or whatever that goal looks like. You'll have something specific in mind, and I want you to have that. I want you to now pull that out, bring it to the forefront. If it's already written down, it's right in front of you and there's a scorecard, brilliant. I don't want to change a process that's not broken. I just want you to have that at the forefront of your mind, because as I said, my goal here is for you to get results. So whatever way you get results is gonna make my evening and your morning. All right, so moving someone who is general about their goals to being ultra specific has five elements to it. Now, the first three are talked about in a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. So for anyone who's read Atomic Habits, if you haven't read Atomic Habits, spoiler alert, I'm gonna give you the first three. Now, what they are is process. So having a process to get what you want, having the right habits, and then having the identity. The next one is momentum, and the last one is accountability. Now, the process and the habits is actually together. I've changed that slide. That should say goals. So it's actually process and habits, goals, and an identity. So effectively what that means is you need to have a goal. You need to then have a process, which is the process I'm giving you. Then the identity of the person who is able to achieve that. And then the two that I've added on there that just allow people to move forward with momentum is momentum and accountability. You need someone in your corner, whether that's a team member or you need some form of accountability to move these things forward. Now, we're not going to have time to jump into all of these in great detail. However, it's crucial that if you've got a pen handy, write these down, because this list is the recipe to being able to get what you want. So what I want to do is talk about one. I want to talk about identity, because this is where 90% of people get goal achievement wrong. Okay, so they never consider who the person is doing the doing. There's a whole lot of action, and it's easy to take the actions and more doing and doing and doing. And before long, you're just busy, and busyness doesn't equal business growth. So as I said, when I referred to the to-do list, a lot of people aren't considering, so this is with a lot of my clients and a lot of the people that I've worked with and myself, and I talk about this because this is something that I've gone through for a long time to create this process, is the busyness and the doing. without thinking about who the person is that's doing the doing. So I'm going to walk you through something that I think is going to be quite powerful for you if you haven't considered this before. If you have considered this before, it allows you the chance to look at it again in the frame that you're in right now, because like you guys, there's a lot going on in the world. There always is, and there's a lot going on in business, but you've got to consider who the person is that's doing the doing. So who's the person that's doing it? Now, the broken strategy is when I have this thing, I'll be able to do, so when I have this goal or I have this environment, I'll do the things and then I'll be the person, I'll feel happy, I'll feel all these things. That's a broken strategy. So the way we want to operate is, who's the person being? Who am I being that already has the things? And then what are they doing to create the environment? So the biggest key when you write your goals is to write them in the past tense. So you write them as if they've already happened. So when you write it, you're writing it from the space of, I've already achieved this, and what were the actions that I took, and what did I do differently to achieve this thing? Now, what I want you to do now is just go through this exercise with me. And this is the process for being able to create the identity and look at the things that need to be done to get you where you want to be. So who would I be? How would I feel? Because at the end of the day, if you touch in with yourself, if you just ask yourself, the reason that you want the thing is so that you can feel the feels. So the byproduct of getting the thing is actually because we want a feeling, we want joy, we want freedom, by creating more structure, I actually want freedom. I love creating the structure because I like the process, but actually what I really want is I want to feel freedom. And what would I do if I already had? So you notice it's past tense. So, and then you can insert whatever it is that you want. You'll get this deck afterwards. I'll send it through. Because I'm conscious of your time and I'm going to move through some of these things, but this is, I can't emphasize how important and how much this will change things for you in relation to your goal setting and getting what you want in your business, in your life, for your team members. When you come from a place of what are the things how do I need to be? Do I need to be committed? Do I need to be, what are the things that you need to do in being? And how would you feel when you've already got it? If there's any questions on that, pop them in the chat, because I'm passionate about this subject, so I can jump onto it, and I'll come back if I see anything in there. The second pillar is mindfulness. So that first pillar, specific goals. All right, there was a bit in there, but that was specific goals. Number 2 is mindfulness. Now, what I mean by mindfulness is the ability to get quiet. So this is the ability in the day and age that we live in, where we've got access to as much information as we could ever possibly want. How do we slow our brain down and refocus it on the things that are actually important to you? So clarity comes in the silence. And when you can do this, and when you've got a mindfulness practice, you can get quieter in the scenarios when everything can be going on externally. You can center yourself and do the things that you need to do. And as I said, I have a bonus to help you with this. So do you first. If you write down anything from this section, and I'm going to go through a fair bit, but do you first every day. And that's not selfish. So if you're sitting there thinking that might be a little bit selfish, if I'm, what about my kids? What about, you saw I've got 2 lovely boys, I've got a lovely wife. When I do me first, I show up better. And when I show up from that place, more good things happen. So do you first is the main takeaway from this. Now, I read a book, Jay Shetty, for anyone who follows Jay Shetty or has read the book, Think Like a Monk, he describes it really eloquently. It's very simple. 50% self and 50% service. And that's how monks live. So 50% of their day is self, 50% of their day is service to others. Now, I don't know about you, it sounds like a really peaceful way to live. And when we can practice a little bit of that in our day, it's going to give you endless benefits. So choosing a mindfulness practice like meditation, breath work, silence, just a walk or a swim, getting out into nature, it's more about just being in tune with your body. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do to actually get you to feel this is just check in right now with your breath. So I'm not sure, some cameras are on, some aren't. Depending on what's going on around you, check in with your breath now and check in, am I breathing into my stomach? Am I breathing into my chest? Is it deep and controlled? Do I feel a bit anxious? What are you feeling with your breath? And whatever you're feeling, if you just breathe all the way into your stomach, and obviously it depends on your environment. If you're feeling like it doesn't feel like a safe environment because it's an office setting or something like that, I totally understand. But if you do feel like that's something that you're open to, when you breathe all the way into your stomach and then you breathe out, things start to calm down. You can relax your shoulders, you can just relax, and then you can focus on what needs to happen next. The bonus that I'm going to give you is some breath work. I'm fortunate enough that my wife Susie is a breathwork facilitator. So I get the added bonus that I have a facilitator that can create this content and create things. And I want to gift that to you. So that will be in the bonus after this. Now, what this actually allows you to do is your breath actually dictates a lot of how you feel. And your feelings also dictate your breath. So if you're feeling anxious and you're feeling like there's all the things to do and what do I do first, and the emails are coming in and the calls are coming in and the loudest customer is the person that I feel like I need to help right now, then this is going to help because it allows you to you'll feel the breath moving up into your wire in your chest. And when you get it to come down into your stomach, you'll be able to go through with a bit more ease. And make things a bit more effortless. Okay. Now, this process is something that takes time. So what I'm suggesting in terms of mindfulness at the moment is choose something that feels comfortable. Remember, the brain focuses on least effort. All right. So it wants to do easy things. So we want to make this achievable for ourselves. So focus on something that you feel comfortable with, that you already do as a mindfulness practice, and then either expand that out or consider jumping on and having a look at breath work. And when you combine gratitude with this, so I've got a gratitude question that you can ask yourself every day. And for anyone that already does a practice with gratitude, I'm going to ask you to do a bit of a secret weapon here, which is combine mindfulness with gratitude. Because if you combine a mindfulness of breath work and you center yourself in the morning, and then the next question you ask yourself is, what am I grateful for? What feels good right now? What am I really grateful for? Then that's actually going to bring on all of the things that you want to feel on a daily basis, and it's just going to set you up for success for the day. So I will share that link after this, but the next pillar is tracking. So famous quote by Peter Drucker is, what gets measured improves. So we need to have something where we can rate things. I rate everything. I made spaghetti tonight and I said to Susie, what do you rate it? Out of 10. What was that? How was that spaghetti for you? And she was like, babe, I don't know. Don't you need to get ready for your call? I said, yes, I do. I need to do a bit of breath before my call. But what do you rate the spaghetti? Because otherwise, I'll have no idea how I'm going to improve on that next time, right? So it's important that we track these things. And if we don't track it, then we're not going to know. Now, I asked the same question of my son, and he won't accept anything that doesn't look exactly the same as what he's had previously. So no new things. So I totally get it. If you've got toddlers, I understand. So the difference with someone who's tracking their progress and someone who's not is marked. So there's been a lot of studies done. I'm not going to share all of these now, but I do have some resources that I will share with you after this, because I'm not going to have time to go into all of it, but I want you to have these resources so that you can look at it and go, oh, okay, this process has been created through a proven methodology, through other people that have done it. And resistance to change is actually hardwired. So we're actually hardwired to want to do the things that are easy and the things that we know because they're safe. Now, at the bottom of every page, so at the bottom of every daily page that you'll use in the PDF that you've got, you'll notice that there's a track yourself section. Now, to make tracking easy, because sometimes with tracking, if you've got a detailed tracker or a scoreboard, phenomenal. If you've got a digital system going, that's great. Now, the way I use tracking as a means to write it down so that I can feel the progress and feel the action is I'll just write down something simple. Now, if it's connection, if I'm connecting with different people and calling different prospects, I will make it so simple, and I will have a goal that is how many people and what specific action do I want? What's my intention for those calls? And I will track that result in that bottom section. So making tracking easy is going to make it effective for you. And then you're going to know that things are moving forward. And when you start doing this from tomorrow, the day after that, it's going to get easier. And the day after that, it's going to get easier. And you're going to get more and more done because you're going to look at it. And the next sections that I'm going to talk to you about in a second are going to show you that once you've written down and tracked these things, you can ask yourself really powerful questions to get things moving forward. Thanks, Nikki. It'll all be in the recording. All right. Okay, the fourth pillar is great questions. Now, Voltaire said, judge a man by his questions rather than his answers. So when you ask great questions, new opportunities are going to come. Okay, so, and sometimes the hardest thing is when you're inside the problem. So when you've got a specific business problem, or you've got a problem with staff or results, or it just doesn't seem to be like, one I hear a lot is, I'm just in a saturated market and I can't get enough leads. And you notice when I'm labeling it and I'm giving it that, if I don't ask great questions, I'm never going to get outside of that problem. So when we ask great questions, and I put the questions in there, some daily questions for you to consider, you're going to get different results, because the quality of questions that you ask yourself on a daily basis is actually going to determine the quality of your life. So I'm going to say that one more time. The quality of the questions that you ask yourself on a daily basis will determine the quality of the life and the quality of the business that you're running. Now, one of the main obstacles I had to overcome was time. The other was structure. As you know, I value freedom. So having structure and having a mentor say to me that I needed more structure, instantly I thought, you're taking my freedom away from me. And things started to shut down. So when we create more structure, you're going to get more freedom. So let me show you how. So when you get up tomorrow morning, the emails are coming in, the task list is going, other people's priorities are coming through. You maybe planned a few things. If you planned a few things today to execute in tomorrow, and you've done some lead-in work, that's phenomenal, and it's going to hit the ground running. But sometimes the loudest customer is going to be the first one that's going to get your attention, rather than the most productive thing that you can do. So say we get to 11 a.m. and a few things have been done. We've answered some emails, we've made some calls. After that, you're going to jump into a little bit of work, return some emails, and then we're going to go to lunch. And then after lunch, you're going to feel a little bit sleepy. Your willpower is going to be down a little bit, and you're going to think, do you know what? Okay, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to make some phone calls. I'm going to touch on some of those emails. I'm going to tidy a few things up so that I can feel accomplished for the day, and then I'm going to head home. Now, there was a few things that happened there, and I went through it quite quickly, but that was my day. And what I noticed is when you did that time after time, because there's so many things going on in your business, and I get it, but when we're doing that, compounded over time, it means that we're actually compounding the results that we don't want to have, as opposed to when we jump in and we ask a really phenomenal question to eliminate some of the other things that are going on, the other stresses and the other things that might be coming up. We can actually cut through the noise and go, is this serving me? How do I actually put some of these things to the side and then tackle this one thing that's going to move my business forward or move my life forward? Now, one of the first ways you can actually eliminate all the noise and eliminate some of the different things that are going on in the day is actually the mindfulness practice first thing. Because when you do that, you feel clear. And when you're coming from a place of gratitude, that clarity allows you to make different decisions when the day kicks off. The other one is the focus question. Now, the focus question is from a book by the name of The One Thing. It's from Gary Keller. Phenomenal book if you don't have it. Now, the one thing is, what's the one thing I can do such by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? How good's that? Everything else is going to be easier or unnecessary. Because sometimes deciding which thing in the day is going to get the maximum results is actually a challenge. So this question cuts through the noise. If you've already read the book and you've got this question in front of you, then continue to use it. It's so good. If you don't, then write this down. What's the one thing I can do such by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary? Now, he goes into more detail, and there is more detail, and you can ask this in really specific instances. So if it's a real specific business related, life related, whatever it is, you can ask this in different ways, but this will cut through the bullshit of the task list, and this will get you right on track. Now, as I said before, your willpower wanes later in the day. So this is one of the first questions that we do in the morning as part of this process, is go through mindfulness practice, execute and look at the goals that need to move forward, and then actually take a step back from it and go, what's the one thing? Because I've just built myself this list, and my list might have 6 or 7 things on it, but actually before I get going and before I open my email and jump on the phone and do all these things, what's the one thing I can do that's going to make everything easier or not necessary? And you could consider that for today, because you're at the start of your workday. I'm at the end of my workday, so but for the start of the workday, what's the one thing that can move you forward? Now, pillar 5 is intention. So what I mean by intention is to be clear on what you stand for and what you're committed to, okay? Intention is different from goals. Now, intention is actually a way of being. So we talked about identity before, but being intent means that you're decisive and clear. And when you're intentional, you're doing things on purpose, and you're doing things with purpose and purposefully. So intention is really powerful. When I first grasped the concept, I felt like, well, intent, it sounds good. But actually, when we get really underneath the meaning, something that I had to learn quickly and get up to speed with was fast decision making. So as I mentioned before, there was a point in my career where we were running the 2 businesses, and I was also the operations manager nationally for those 500 stores across the country. My ability to be crystal clear with what my intention was at any given moment was going to impact the results of the systems, impact the results of business owners, impact the results of the team, and ultimately impact the results that my family was going to experience when I got home. So having an intention each day is super powerful. So can't emphasize that enough. Now, when a situation arises where you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable in asserting yourself, if you're making a tough or challenging decision, if you're taking an action to speak up and voice your opinion, when someone challenges your point of view, these are scenarios that all come up, and they all come up in business, and often we don't know what to say or how to approach it. So this is where starting the day with a clear intention is going to get you results, and it's going to keep you present with your decision making. So the example, my intention for today was to be committed. So that meant that when something vies for my attention, I've got a clear goal. I know what I needed to execute. And then I've got an intention that is commitment, which reinforces the fact that I need to execute that goal. And if that means that after this call, I've got things to tidy up, which actually, case in point, I do have some things to tidy up, I'm committed to those things, so I'll do them. And that's where I caveat the last bit. It is about doing less and doing less better. It's also about doing the work when the work is required. So whilst we can do less and achieve better results, It's about doing the less that's going to give you the more. So doing the 20% is actually going to give you the 80% result. Okay, I'm going to take a breather because that's the 5 pillars. All right. So how do you make that happen? All right. Now, if you're looking at the PDF, if you've got it in front of you, that's great. If not, you're going to have, I'm going to pull this all together for you. But I want to go back to my promise, because I said that we'd focus on revenue generating activities that are actually going to grow your business. And the 3 ways that you're going to do that is specific goals, great questions, and tracking. So the things that we've just discussed, because I wanted to show you how these concepts are actually going to push through into actually how are we going to get the results. So when you've got specific goals and you've asked the focus question and you're clear on the end goal, when you're asking great questions about how can I get that goal, how can I do this thing, as opposed to I've got no leads, I've got no sale, and I totally get it, but how can I do that? And when you're tracking progress, you'll quickly pick up before you get to the end of the month. You'll know when you're off track. You'll be able to ask great questions when you're off track of the team and of yourself. Something I haven't touched on yet is delegation. If you have the luxury of the team, or not the luxury, if you've created the business that has the team underneath you, then you do have that tool, that wonderful tool of delegation, in which you can delegate things out to other people that need to get done. If you don't, then you've got to be super committed to executing these things. Achieve more doing less. That's the power of intention. If you've got the intent that you are going to be committed, and you know that you've only got 1 or 2 things that you need to commit to today that are actually going to move the dial forward, and you ask the focus question, then you can achieve more doing less, because you'll achieve the things that are going to move you forward, and you're going to do less because you're only achieving the thing that is actually going to move the business forward. Anxiety and stress are present. They're part of the human experience that we all get. And the exciting part about that, if we look at it from a different perspective, is that if we didn't get to feel anxiety and stress, and we didn't get to feel those things, then how would we know what joy and bliss and excitement and all of those things? Because you can't have one without the other, because you wouldn't know how to differentiate them, right? So if I just take a different perspective and look down on those, with a bit of mindfulness, with gratitude, and definitely with being conscious about your breath, you will be able to navigate the human body, which is going to experience those things. They're there for a reason. They're there to help us. And it's about our perspective on those things. So when you've got a perspective that everything is happening for me, not to me, things change. And when you've cultivated an environment where you've done something for you first, with mindfulness and gratitude, then you can execute anything you need to execute under stress or anxiety. This is what it looks like. So just wanted to pull this out so you can see the elements together. So you can see the mindfulness minutes up in the top left-hand corner. And essentially with that, you choose your practice in terms of what the mindfulness is. It can be as short or as long as you want it to be. And then what practice did I choose? How did I center myself? What am I grateful for? And why am I grateful for it? And then you do everything else. So then you've got some slots to plan your day. This isn't obviously a digital calendar. I've got all my appointments booked into a digital calendar. And when I look at it, when other people look at it, they get overwhelmed looking at the calendar because it's all booked out, but it's all booked out purposefully. For this process, this is just about putting some things in there for the day. And then you can see, track yourself. My intention for today is to be, and then 3 goals. Doesn't have to be 3. Less is more. Sometimes I've only got 1 or 2 in there because they're my focus points. There's other things I need to do, but really my goals are the big things that are going to move things forward, and they're the ones that I write. And then you'll notice the questions. So then there's a bit of evening reflection. At the start, I said 15 to 20 minutes in the morning, 15 to 20 minutes in the evening. It varies, but I usually spend a little bit less. And in the evening, what did I do well today? So what did I actually move for? Let's go to bed cultivating an environment that is actually I want to go to bed knowing that I've moved something forward. What am I grateful for again? Like, what am I grateful for in my life right now? Because it will be different. You've experienced a whole day of different things, but what are you actually grateful for? Where did I grow today? And how did what I learned improve me for tomorrow? So you're actually conditioning yourself to learn. By asking this question every single day, you're conditioning yourself to learn as opposed to be inside a problem. And then the last one is, have I been the kind of person I want to be? And if not, how could I do things differently tomorrow? So as opposed to what we normally do is negative self-talk, and I know this because the mind is a wonderful thing. How can I do things differently tomorrow? All right, I've got 2 bonuses for you. I just want to check in though quickly. On time, I will deliver these 2 bonuses because I know that you're going to want them. The 2 essential ingredients for getting anything done. Okay, so hang with me. The first is commitment. So let's take a look at commitment. Before we do that, I want to talk to you about these 2 ways of being, because they're essential in getting the things done that you want to get done in your business. They need to be present for you to get the results that you want to get, and their commitment and self-integrity. Now, let me explain those in a minute, but these are essentially ways of being. So I talked about identity, and I talked about how the identity is going to allow us to create the things that we want to create. And your goal for these bonuses is just to have a deeper understanding of these 2 things and how they're going to impact your business. Because to be honest, your business is actually a reflection of how you've been showing up and what role you've been playing as a leader, as an integral part of the business. It's actually a reflection of how you've been showing up. The first is commitment. So let's look at commitment. Commitment means taking responsibility, not blame. So you can be a little committed to your results, or you can be really committed, or you can be absolutely 100% unequivocally committed to what it's going to take, and what actions you're going to take, and take full responsibility for everything that's going on. Now, when you think about it, anyone who's had a massive breakthrough or done something that's absolutely well outside of their comfort zone or well outside of what they thought was possible, they couldn't have done that without being 100% committed. Now, that might have been the ending stages of a long race where they just dialed their commitment factor right up. But because it takes great commitment to get these results. So as you look at completing the next 14 days in the next month into October, how committed are you going to be to getting the things that you want to get done? Because it does become a question of how committed you're going to be to your results and how committed you've been up until this point to change things moving forward. So there's no judgment here, and there's no good or bad, really. This is just a self-assessment for you to go, how committed? So on a scale of 1 to 10, because you guys know I like to rate things on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed have you been up until this point in getting the goals that you want to get? Now, this is a great opportunity for you to measure that, because if we're honest with ourselves and we can see a strategy that isn't working, then we can change it. So if you don't know the strategy is not working, then you can't change it. Now, whatever you wrote down, if it wasn't a 10, the next question that I'd ask you to consider is, what can I do to make it a 10? So what could you do to make the results and the dreams and the things that you want to happen in your business, when you're 100% committed, what would that mean to you, and what could you do to move that forward and make it a 10? The next one is self-integrity. Now, this again is a way of being. Integrity is a matter of a person's word. It's nothing more and nothing less. Now, a lot of people, when I say integrity, a lot of people think about doing the right things and think about integrity in the context of morality and whether something's being done right, and structural integrity. And that's not what I mean. What I mean with integrity is being your word. So there's a phenomenal book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The 4 Agreements. And it's an ancient book, it's an old book, but one of the 4 agreements is be impeccable with your word. How powerful would that be if you are absolutely impeccable with your word? Now, when your self-integrity is such that when you say things, things get done, you move everything forward. Everything changes. When you adopt self-integrity, everything changes. Now, there's a powerful study that was done by a gentleman of the name of Stephen Jensen. I'm going to send that to Andy, post this to link up. As I said, there'll be a couple of resources that I'll send. I won't go through all of them now. That study was about business owners just adopting one core principle and one core value, which was integrity, into their teams and into their businesses. And the end result of that study resulted in businesses getting anywhere between a 300% to a 400% increase in productivity across their teams. What would 400% boost in productivity mean to the bottom line of your business? Because just by adding integrity as a core value, that added 400% onto the bottom line of the businesses in that study. And I'll send you the detailed study because, to be honest, as soon as I read it, I made it a core principle of our businesses, and I made it part of my life to essentially do as much as I could to stay in integrity. And it's not about, because we're human, right? So how many times has someone said to you, I'll meet you at 12:30 for lunch, and they've not met you at 12:30 for lunch because something's come up? How many times have we said, I'll get that thing to you by the end of the week? Or someone has said to you, I'll get that thing to you by X, Y, and Z. And they're the little things, but when you stack those little things time after time, they amplify the results of the actions. And if they're not the actions and the results that you want, then we need to adopt this to turn things around. Now, the beautiful thing about it is that you can honor your word by messaging someone. So communication is the foundation for this, because there's going to be times when we're out of integrity. It's actually how quickly we can get back on the horse. So honoring your word is about sending a message when I know I'm going to be late, committing to something, and then letting that person know through communication that actually things have changed for X, Y, and Z reason, because then I'm back in integrity and I've let that person know. That's powerful. In teams, that is so powerful. When I put this into my business coaching team, it changed. 2 people did leave, but it changed things, and it changed things for the right reasons. Now, I want you to just check in with yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Where are you feeling like your self-integrity? One being that you never do what you say you're going to do, which I know isn't the case because you're all business owners or senior parts of a business. And 10 being, I'm 100% integral with everything that I say 100% of the time. And when you've got that number, you can check in and know that anything less than a 10 allows you to get higher. And that means that when you honor your word more often, you're going to ensure that you make decisions in your business that are going to get things done. And the reason that we're actually doing this is so that we can experience progress. So if it's low on the scale, then you already know that you can get improvement straight away. You know that from today and tomorrow onwards, you can get improvement in your business results straight away. So I've shared with you these 2 ways of being, 2 concepts. They're vital, they're absolutely required. Now, to get the results and get the big results that you want to get and get the progress over the next, as I said, the 14 days and the back end of the month, I've got the whole month of October in there. You need to be operating on these 2 principles at least an 8, 9, or 10 to truly get the results that you want to get. So I'm going to ask you to take that on board and consider what these changes would mean. And if you've got time, read that study. Create some time to read that study. So that's the concept, and that's everything that is going to move things forward for you. The last thing I wanted to say, if you've got this, you're in business for a reason. You are helping some phenomenal people. I saw some of the different businesses and people that you help in doing what you do. And when you adopt these things and when you put these practices in play, and as I said, go for a less is more strategy, you will move things forward. Now, those resources are going to be coming to you. If anyone wants to reach out, if you enjoyed this, if you got some value, please let me know. You can let me know in the comments now while I'm here live. Otherwise, you can send me an email if there's anything that you would like unpacked. As I said, I'm going to provide Andy with some more context and some other things. The link for your free breathwork is on the screen right now. So if you pump that in, you'll get the breathwork straight away. You can do it today. Otherwise, pop that link in there. It will be in the follow-up email as well. And if you're on Instagram or Facebook, follow me for more content like this. But guys, thank you.
Andrew, that's absolutely brilliant. Massive session. I've just wrote copious amounts of notes. So guys, I know some of you guys might have to shoot off now. Feel free to, if you really need to. Thank you for joining us live. If you've got 10 minutes to hang around, Andrew, have you got 10 minutes to maybe ask some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I was so conscious of people's time, so I appreciate it. Thank you for hanging around.
Yeah, no, man, it's a really high value session. I think, like I said, I've literally got, I could probably ask you about 16 different questions right now. I'm not going to ask 16. Guys, if you've got questions right now, please feel free to pop them in the chat function. And I'm going to ask the first one. And by the time Andrew answers that, there might be another question coming through. So there's a couple of things I want to, let's just focus on one thing. Let's focus on one thing here, because I could go off on tangents here. But one thing for me, which I struggle with personally, just running different businesses. I'm also studying right now. I'm running the London Marathon this weekend. I've got 2 young children, as you know. I've got a third one on the way this end of this year. I've got a wonderful wife, but always needs more of my attention. How do we deal with competing demands? Because I think you mentioned about the one thing. I'd say the one thing for me that I need to do better in my life is probably sleep. Like, that's one thing I probably, either through just having toddlers or maybe just through my own bad habits of waking up at 3 in the morning and work. I mean, I was messaging you yesterday at 4 in the morning, UK time. Not too sure that's very healthy for me, because one day I'll do 4 a.m., one day I'll do 7 a.m. How do we work with competing demands? How do we know, how do we say, okay, right, so I've got this big task list that obviously you mentioned about is not necessarily the most effective way of doing things. How do we then say, okay, so we've got 5 different competing demands today, which all sort of feel like they need the right amount of attention, or they need me to prioritize as the number one thing, but it's difficult to manage. How do you deal with that as a competing demands and focusing on 1, 2, 3, 4, or moving the stuff on?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. So let me see how I can tackle this in a succinct amount of time. So the way I deal with it, and the way that I've implemented systems across the businesses that I'm running and with clients as well, because I've got a mixture of different things going on, is through the effective use of calendar, and then communication, and then delegating the things out and building systems. So actually building systems is the key to success, because once I put something into my businesses, so both our businesses are online. Okay, now I've also very experienced with bricks and mortar. That's what I've done for more of my life, but now I've moved everything online, and the recent things that have happened in the world have made that more fruitful. But when I build something, I've always got the end in mind, as in, how can I release that to a virtual assistant, or how can I release that to someone else? Because I'm trying to build systems in my business that don't require me. So I think that's the one thing. The other thing is my calendar, which I mentioned before. I book my time in my calendar, and my poor wife gets all of those invitations as to what's going on, so she knows, so I can balance the family. And the way I prioritize things is, as I said, me first, family, and these definitely are high competing priorities, because there's times when the kids are going to need me sooner. But juggling the different things, like all those things you mentioned about all the different things that need to happen, I think the key is building the system and knowing when the work's required. For example, the example that I've got tonight is, I need to sit up and I need to finish this thing that I'm committed to today. And it's actually a workaround on the online system so that it doesn't require me anymore. However, it is going to take a little bit extra from me today that I've got to be willing to give to build it, so that I can release it, and hopefully I won't have to touch it again, or I'll just have to fix it. Hopefully that answers your question to some extent.
Yeah, it does, and I sort of knew the sort of answer you'd say, to be honest with you. I think it's just, again, because I'm a bit time obsessed. You mentioned that in the talk as well. I'm a bit time obsessed, like a lot of business owners are, I think. And I think then when it comes to actually sitting down and saying, I've got a section off a chunk of this week to start thinking about where can I systemize my life, to be honest with you, because we're so busy in life. I think systemizing your life as well as your business is kind of a big thing. So that's really useful. Let me just quickly scan through this question. I think there's loads of thank yous on the chat function now. Remembering, I'm not sure there's any questions coming through. I think everyone's just probably processing the mad amount of content that came through. There's one more thing I'll mention as well, not a question, but Andrew, feel free to add your thoughts as well, I suppose. And guys as well, please take note of this, of Andrew's contact details, and I'll send through an email of the recording of this and also the links that Andrew mentioned with some of the case study stuff he spoke about. And obviously, please get in contact with him if you want to kind of talk about some of the client stuff he does and the group training stuff he does. One thing I listened to recently was Tony Robbins and Lewis Howes were doing a podcast. Lewis Howes got a big podcast, and Tony Robbins, most people probably know Tony Robbins is. If you don't know Tony Robbins is, go online, you'll see a million bits of content. He's fantastic. And one thing he said recently was about, you mentioned it, Andrew, and it reminded me of it, was compounding. And how he says it is stacking. So he mentions about how, and I'm going to do this disservice to what he said, so I won't go into too much detail, but he talks about things in life being positive or negative. And when you go through lots of negative things, which is what a lot of people unfortunately had to go through during COVID, in the global pandemic, is lots of people are stacking up negatives. So then when you have, like if you think like a stack of chairs, and you're just stacking negative things that happen in your life, and then maybe one thing happens that's positive, so you can take away you take away one of those chairs, but you still got 10 chairs of negative stuff in your mind right now, but you kind of need to get rid of that, you need to get through a process. I think some of the stuff you mentioned today, including the breathwork stuff, is probably really good to kind of push that stack of chairs completely down and start from zero again. I think stacking is kind of an interesting concept, and I recommend people looking at that as well at some point. But compounding, I think, and the habit building is really important. I haven't read James Clear's book yet. It's been on the to read list for like forever. So I'll definitely get onto that. But look, Andrew, thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys for joining us live and watching the recording as well. Andrew, any final thoughts to anyone before we leave?
My final thought is on that, because I love that stuff. And that's why I've read James Clear's book. And I was fortunate enough, and I think where compounding has come into my repertoire more was actually from Tony Robbins. It's intuitive that you would say that. Now he does his money mastery, which is his high level business course. I've been fortunate enough to get some content from that and understand how that group works. And he has an analogy in there about compounding, and essentially what it looks like as a graph, as I can picture it out. And this isn't as it pertains to financial success, but as it pertains to everything, is the graph goes over the first 10 years and it just starts to plot across, and you can sort of see it moving up. So the progress is there, right? We're talking about 10 years. So if you're thinking about your bit, like 10 years of this compounding going forward, and then it just hockey sticks, because you've compounded it over time and then you get those results. That's the first thing that comes, like, couldn't agree with you more with stacking and compounding your interest in terms of the positive things that you do. They also get easier. So much the same as compounding interest in the bank and with assets and all that sort of wealth creation, it gets easier when you stack the habits and start doing them with repetition. So breath work as a super simple thing that everyone in the world can do, that wasn't comfortable for me. It actually took me 3 months to start doing it whilst my wife was facilitating and practicing, and I could see the benefits and how she was changing. And then all of a sudden it got easier after I just started to continue the process. And the other thing that I'd say on top of that, which will benefit everyone, is James Clear talks about mini habits and the ability to create like micro actions. And one that I'd give you straight away is with the planner. If I'm not gonna, so I've got a whole planner that I designed, which is part of where this process has come from, but I will leave it open on the page and leave it open on the desk. I'll leave my phone where I need to get up to physically get out of bed to get it. Micro habits are the greatest things ever. I'll have a glass of water, but it's not right next to the bed. It's actually in the office. So I've got to physically get up out of bed at maybe 4 a.m. I do get up early, as you know, to go and get it. And that's what's called a micro habit, which allows you to form a routine because you physically have a need to go and get something somewhere else, or it's just easier. Let's just make it easy. Other than that, I appreciate it, guys. I know I've run over time, but I'm super appreciative that you guys stayed online, and truly, I hope you get a lot of benefit from that. And actually, one thing I did forget to mention is send me the results. Like if someone adopts this process and takes it on, I'm so keen to hear that you did get the results that you wanted to get. So yeah, thank you.
Amazing, thank you, Andrew. Thank you guys for joining. I'm going to end that there. Now, micro habits, my final memory thing in my head. I'm thinking about right now. All right, guys, have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Take care.